Our invasion of wolf country begins in the wintry mists of the Lozère region of France. The decisive factor in making this documentary was our meeting with Gérard Ménatori. A journalist by training, Gérard Ménatori fulfilled his childhood dreams of living with the wolves. A trained scientist with in-depth knowledge gleaned in fieldwork, Gérard Ménatori is recognized as a major authority on the subject of wolves. Our camera crew was interested in understanding the way wolves live and to find out why they have such a bad reputation. The wolf myth has always haunted the collective subconscious. Gérard Ménatori has transmitted his passion to his daughter Anne, who assists him in his work. They are our guides, because if anyone knows the true story of wolves, it is them. Man is an upright animal. Upright animals frighten everyone, especially during the wars of this century. And for thousands of years, wolves have fought with men, and for 10, 20, and even more thousands of years, humans have been throwing rocks at wolves to chase them away. When you throw a rock at a wolf, it's frightened and backs off. It hates to give ground. But after receiving rocks for thousands of years, it seems to be built into their genes.
Je mets 2 boîtes dans le charging bag avec 2 sacs noirs.
Filming wolves is not easy. They've learned how to become invisible. The Gévaudan Park is one of the few places in the world where you can watch them live in semi-liberty. Founded by Gérard Ménatori, the park is situated in the Lozère region of France, where the altitude and climate are ideal for the wolf packs living there. With some of his international colleagues, such as De La Fuente in Spain and Boitani in Italy, Gérard challenges the commonly held and often erroneous beliefs about Canis lupus. During the first few days, Gérard taught us how to behave in the presence of these animals that have learnt to live with man. A curious young she-wolf checks that our microphones are working properly. It takes us a few days to remember not to stretch out our hands towards the wolves, nor to leave our equipment on the ground, as they are attracted at once. The Gévaudan Park is divided into several sections. We shot most of the film about Canis lupus behavior in the largest section, reserved for observations by naturalists. To observe the nocturnal movements of the wolves, we set up a powerful spotlight powered by a generator set. The place we chose is the dividing line between the territories of two opposing packs. We wonder if the wolves will be disturbed by the light source. Timid yet curious, they appear in the beam of the spotlight one by one. This dominant male marks out his territory by rubbing himself against a dead prey. In this way, he leaves his odor which emanates from the two glands on his back. The subordinate members of the pack recognize the imprint of his odor and hesitate for a long time before touching the meat. Like all predators, wolves only attack and kill to feed. By nature rather timid and mistrustful, they have always fled from man.
Imaginez qu'un loup.
If a wolf killed somebody, it would be in the press and on TV for weeks. All the old terrors would resurface, but it has never happened during the 30 years I've been living with wolves. Wherever I've traveled, I've asked the question, but the answer has always been the same, from the Indians of the far north, the mountain people in the Rockies, in Greece, in Yugoslavia, in Poland, everywhere I've been. I've asked the question thousands of times, but no one in the world has ever heard of a wolf attacking a human. Although we used major equipment, the packs realized straight away that we were not a threat. It's true that in winter, they have other things on their mind. It's the peak of the reproductive period. Conflicts arise inside wolf packs. The alpha couples strive to keep their dominant position with their fangs. They enforce a kind of psychological castration on the others, and so are the only couple of the entire pack able to mate. For fertilization to occur, the two wolves must couple until after the male has ejaculated. While they are occupied in this way, the other members of the clan take the opportunity to challenge their authority. When they can no longer fight off these attacks, they are replaced by a younger couple. Is the sound okay?
Quoi?
Is the sound okay?
Hein?
Today, the temperature is down to minus 15 degrees Celsius. The crew has to check that the equipment is working correctly after each sequence. There are 3 reasons why hunters kill wolves, and all of them are for money. That explains why wolves have been hunted so much. Hunters always kill wolves in winter because the fur keeps better and is easy to sell. The first profit they make is the fur, and the second the bounty. Since the time of Charlemagne, bounties have been offered for killing wolves. The third advantage is for the hunter himself, as he trundles the wolf in a cart from one farm to the next and from one village to another. When he arrived, he wouldn't say that the wolf was taking a nap under a tree when he whacked it with his blunderbuss. Instead, he'd talk about the danger of the hunt. You can imagine the scene. With one bound, the wolf pounced on me, but I was ready. I aimed my trusty gun, and when I could see the whites of its eyes, I shot it. But if it had been your children, or your slow-moving granny, or your mother-in-law, it would have got them and torn them apart with its fangs. So then people would invite the hunter in for a meal and give him eggs or a few pence. On Gerard's advice, we moved on to the Mercantour backcountry behind Nice in the south of France. In 1992, forest wardens picked up the spoor of the wolves that had probably crossed the border from Italy. There, wolves and men have coexisted for centuries.
Il est assez grand angle. Le plus grand angle, c'est le
18.
C'est le 18. Et après, c'est le 25.
Après, c'est le 25. Ouais.
We were not optimistic as there was little chance that we would see them, let alone be able to film them. Wolves can travel 60 kilometers in a day, are afraid of humans, and become invisible in the woodland background. In fact, the objective of our expedition was totally different. We wanted to explore the wolves' new territory with an original means of transport.
Bon, c'est bon. Ce qu'il faut, c'est que tu la fasses passer par côté de façon à ce qu'elle descende d'ici. Il faut la secouer un peu, il faut reculer, la secouer un peu.
Je fous ça là-dedans.
Ouais. Là, je l'ai resserré. Il y a un temps.
A propeller-driven balloon. We no longer had to depend on the wind to go where we wanted to. In any case, the winds here are usually strong and we could only take off at dawn or dusk. The balloon was ideal for panning long overhead shots. People rarely visit this part of the arid Mercantour range. It's easy to understand why the wolves, persecuted for so long, have chosen this wild place as a home. And, as we thought would happen, we saw not a single wolf. The Gévaudan Park told us that the wolf cubs born 3 weeks ago are timidly starting to leave their lair. Back in Lozère, at Marie-André's, our favorite hostelry, we worked out the shooting schedule.
Marie-André, elle est prête la soupe?
Oui, ça y est, elle est prête. Je sais pas si elle est très très chaude.
C'est bon, de toute façon, ça ira. Oh, merci beaucoup.
Anne Minatory and her brother Hugh check out the physical condition of the cubs, as recently there has been very heavy rain in the region. The pack is wary and moves away as they approach. Inside the lair, however, despite the camera and the artificial light, the cubs do not seem to be frightened. In fact, what we are doing is something the Minatory try to avoid. They limit the interaction between men and wolves to conserve the wolves' natural behavior. Anne and Hugh assess the strength and vitality of the cubs and determine their sex. Before starting filming, we must wait until the cubs are a little older. Meanwhile, the crew travels further south into the BRUNO range. On these steep tracks, donkeys are the best way to haul the equipment. Our main objective is to film a new habitat. Long ago, wolves were found all over France, but by the beginning of this century, they had totally died out.
Allez, ça y est. Hey. Whoa.
Filming in Lozère or the Mercantour, we've come to understand how much the environment and the natural setting contribute to a better understanding of the species Canis lupus. We had to devote as much time and patience to filming the environment as to shooting the animals themselves. Every new season, we return to the same places. In scenery like this, we expected a wolf to leap out at every bend in the path.
Non mais 5h30 quoi.
The end of May. Yellow broom dapples the green Lozère. We return to the Gévaudan. This time, we're going to try to film new sequences at night. We set up our material in a zone where the wolves are obliged to pass to reach their drinking hole. Following last winter's power struggle in the number 2 pack territory, there have been some changes in the hierarchy. The pack is now dominated by a different alpha couple.
Plutôt par là, non?
Our experiment has no scientific goal. All we want to do is observe the wolves' behavior when faced with an unusual situation.
On mettra le...
Le problème c'est que là je suis beaucoup moins fort que...
Antoine, c'est bon là. Hein. Cherche pas à améliorer, c'est parfait là.
We are going to try to confirm that the dominant couple will be the first to take the bait that we're going to put out, as dictated by the new social order. But this takes time to set up, and the noise does little to encourage the wolves to come near. We attach a leg of pork to a post to test the wolf's determination and timidity.
Qu'est-ce que c'est là que t'as entre les dents? Mégot. C'est interdit de claquer sur le tournage. Bon, on y va.
Vas-y, fais un panneau quand même pour voir sur le truc.
Tu vas t'avancer, Patrick, je te dirai quand. Hein.
After long hours of waiting, a wolf appears. But it is not the dominant male or female. Staying fully alert, it tears off as much meat as possible. It flees and returns several times. It even approaches the film crew.
C'est marche arrière, c'est une voie sans souci là. On va vers Allez ben.
The next morning, we return to the site of the nocturnal meal. Gosh, look at that. They've bent the post, they've dug all around it just to get hold of the meat.
On peut le changer si on veut pas être embêté ce soir. Hein.
Ouais, ils ont carrément cassé le fil de fer là, tu vois à
A
l'intérieur.
wolf's jaws are amazingly powerful.
Ça va, il tient encore, mais...
The BERROD Convention, ratified in France in 1993, declares the wolf a protected species. However, the wolf's arrival in the Mercantour has led to problems of cohabitation with the shepherds, whose sheep are directly exposed when in the grazing pastures.
Bégo 6, tu me reçois?
Oui, 4 sur 5.
Tu peux me donner la météo?
Aujourd'hui, alors c'est conditions.
We are meeting two forest wardens near the Vallée des Merveilles in the heart of the Mercantour Range.
Je fais partie
I'm
des
one of the few people to have seen a wolf. Most people here have not. I saw two in fairly special circumstances. I'd gone up into the mountain to find a wolf, and we'd followed their tracks in the snow, which made things easier.
faciliter les choses.
I couldn't believe my eyes. The first time I saw a wolf was something exceptional, and I wondered if I was dreaming, and then they fled. I called all my colleagues to come. One was lying down and the other standing. The one which was standing was watching us. In fact, they were probably both lying down because they'd eaten a chamois. I'd found its carcass. And while we were there, while we disturbed them, there was one that observed us, watching our movements. And after that, when we approached, they fled. If you see wolves, it's because they've been disturbed by something or someone and they're moving on. They really try to avoid humans. Of course you can live without wolves. After all, you can live without Mozart, without the Mona Lisa. In fact, you can live without everything that differentiates humans from animals, without good food and good wine. But wolves are really worth having around. They have a right to live even if they're not very useful. They have their place on Earth. The sun shines for everyone, as the saying goes. But wolves can be a problem for cattle and sheep farmers. When a wolf attacks a flock of sheep, it's because it's easier for the wolf than catching a chamois. Unfortunately, wolves can do a lot of damage. In Italy, most wolves are killed during beats and by illegal hunting too, of course. Hunters should try to understand that wolves contribute to the beauty of the scenery. Many people tell me that they don't hunt for the pot, but to be outdoors in nature and to see beautiful animals like chamois. So they have to get used to the wolves. Of course, wolves eat wild boar and chamois. That's natural. Hunters have to make a little room for the wolves. Wolves are scapegoats for mankind's problems. Man always believes he's in the right. Can you imagine what would have happened if we'd listened to all those hotheads determined to destroy the wolves? If everyone on this planet had acted like the French, Well, there wouldn't have been any wolves around since the first years of the 20th century. The use of strychnine during the First World War could have exterminated the wolves, and we would have lost an extraordinary friend, because wolves are the most sociable animals in creation. That statement might shock a few idiots, but I know what I'm talking about. Hugues, Gérard Menatori's son, grew up with wolves. Now he brings his own children to the park whenever he can.
Assez près de toi. Ouais. Non, c'est bien là. Ouais. Ouais. Voilà, ça m'a l'air bon. Ok. Vas-y. Ça tourne. Vas-y. Tu peux y aller, Hugues.
According to Menatori, a forest peopled with wolves, even if they do not show themselves, is much more valuable than any other because the wolf plays a role in the balance of nature. The children know all about their grandfather's stories and exploits. My father challenges everyone's basic beliefs about wolves. People, he says, have all been traumatized by the story of Little Red Riding Hood. I'm not one of them. My brother and sister and I have been taught to see wolves as lithe, beautiful, wild, golden-eyed, intelligent animals with a highly organized social system. My children perceive them in the same way, like more and more children in general. It took a little time, but now I can introduce my children to the pack chief, who responds by introducing his cubs. Antoine, the first assistant cameraman, has a very important job, tracking much more formidable enemies than the wolves, dust and hair on the camera lens. The park's employees have given us a calf killed by lightning. We've never had bait this big before. Although the wolves are not hungry, instinct draws them to this feast. Although they're all interested, the dominants come up alone first to try to drag the carcass to their territory. The camera devours foot after foot of film. The rest of the pack joins our first guests. Since none of them is really hungry, the bait becomes an excuse for a game. During a break, the crew discusses the day's results.
Et on attend que les petits loups arrivent. Et comme ils vont mettre beaucoup de temps parce qu'il y a toujours des tensions avec l'autre meute, il faudra après qu'on installe pour la nuit. Bon, 2 heures de groupe. Bon, on mettra pareil, on essaiera de mettre un peu de viande pour les attirer, là.
patience is essential for making a film about animals. Waiting for the right moment in the right place is what wildlife filmmakers do the most. It's also important to share out the jobs and organize a rota for the hides to log everything going on. Our reporter, Patrice, keeps the crew log. This requires thought, solitude, and above all, impartiality in all circumstances. Wednesday, June 5th. Weather, blue skies, laden with heat. Backpacking the equipment, we keep gestures to a minimum and save energy. We position the camera on the dividing line between the territories of the two packs to cover a wide choice of shooting angles. It's 9 a.m. and we've been in the hide for 4 hours. Noon. Anne Menatory points out unusual behavior in the two biggest packs. Since last winter, the wolves in clan number 2 have been acting like conquerors and no longer respect the territories. They intrude more and more frequently into the territory of clan number 1. The wolves are now used to our presence. They no longer consider us intruders. Sometimes they even use us as a protective shield from attacks by other wolves. Thursday, June 6th, 11 p.m. In the Canadian Wolf Park, the fog and the darkness multiply our feelings of strangeness and the supernatural.
Tu vois, ça c'est les crocs des loups du Canada.
Look, these are the fangs of Canadian wolves. I don't think it's the dominant male, but it's a good sturdy wolf that really enjoys chewing on that. So the last time I was filming, the foot was vibrating. I wondered what was going on, and in fact it was the wolf that was at my feet biting on it. It gave me an odd feeling, and as it was dark, I didn't notice what was going on for a minute or two. Midnight, Friday, June 7th. We have set up a spotlight and generator set in the big park. Howling of the wolves still scares us. We all used to believe the tales handed down by our grandmothers and grandfathers, but they were stories which have nothing to do with reality. No one ever saw wolves, but they had sometimes heard them howling. They said that the wolves were howling because they were famished and that everyone should stay indoors out of harm's way. Science has proven that all these stories were wrong. At 2 a.m., the generator fails. Watched by the wolves, who see very well in the dark, Jean, the chief electrician, tries to get it going again. Some of them close in and rub themselves against us, sending shivers up our spines. Working by torchlight, we make one last attempt to repair the set. It just shut down. We had to find the fault if we wanted to go on filming. We had to change the water pressure valve, and that cleared up the problem. Wolves are really impressive at night. They come much closer than in the daylight. Daytime is pretty problem-free, but at night, really, you know? To tell the truth, we're all a little scared. There are about 250 to 300,000 wolves on our planet, yet nobody gets eaten. Now, you really can't expect me to believe that wolves ate people 100 or 150 years ago and that they don't eat them now. In every country where wolves live, the wolves lead their own lives, and so do the people. When they're about 6 weeks old, the wolf cubs start to explore the world outside the lair under the watchful eyes of the adults. It gets harder and harder to find them. The camera is positioned above their favorite playground, but we are never sure to see them. Bruno decides to hand out some pieces of meat to the adults of the pack. The young ones are quick to come out of the bushes to demand food from their parents by licking their chops. Although the cubs learn to feed themselves quite quickly, the adults regurgitate food for them until they are quite big. No wolf in the clan can resist the cubs' insistent demands, and all will regurgitate a piece of meat that they've just swallowed. Like games, regurgitation bonds the pack. Saturday, June 8th. The Gévaudan Park welcomes a very special visitor. The Brigitte Bardot Foundation instigated a rescue operation for 80 wolves. Originating in Mongolia, these cubs were being smuggled through Romania to supply the fur trade. Today, Brigitte Bardot is inaugurating the vast park where the wolves were taken into care thanks to Gérard Ménatore's generosity and obstinacy. This park covers about 50 acres and is not open to the public. There are exactly 32 adult wolves and wolf cubs. With a bit of luck, we might be able to see them, but it's difficult because they have a lot of space, which is lucky for them, and it's all thanks to you.
Ce sont les loups de Hongrie, de Mongolie qui sont...
Ce sont nos loups.
Ce sont vos loups.
Voilà. Et ben alors,
on va faire quelques pas.
On va regarder.
Let's look at their new habitat.
Moi, je pourrais pas vivre avec eux là. J'aimerais bien venir vivre avec eux.
C'est dommage. Vraiment, on les dérange pas. Ça fait déjà.
Regardez comment ils viennent.
Je vous disais, ça fait 2 ans et demi qu'on les filme vos loups là.
These are the same wolves we've been tracking and filming for the last 3 years.
Ils
It took them 3 days to travel here. They arrived here because we'd asked Gérard to take them in. They were in a terrible state, much too thin. They were very, very young and had really suffered. And now look what they're like. It really does you good to see that they've developed into such magnificent, splendid, happy beasts. I'm really very pleased. The future of the wolf frightens me, because everything is anti-nature in our society and in our civilization. Before, we lived with the wolves, bears and so on. Of course, we had to defend ourselves. Wolves fascinate me because they're frightening, although they don't scare me at all, and I love animals that are unloved. What does a day like today mean for you? That you should never, ever give up hope.
Jamais désespérer, ça sert à rien.
Gérard Menatori was right not to give up hope. He has devoted his life to rehabilitating the wolf. Thanks to him, we have been able to build very strong emotional ties with the wolves, shoot after shoot. Sometimes we wouldn't see them for a whole day, but we felt their invisible presence. Wolves possess the magic of all wild animals, a radiant force of instinct. They are probably right to mistrust mankind.